something special. I'll take you on a shopping spree, 'cause I'm so into you. I'm so into
I told you, man, it's all about feeling good, hanging fun.
you.
Florida Air, what's up?
Into you.
Almost showtime.
What you like, what you wear? Say the name, say the price, put them diamonds on your head. Shining like a chandelier.
Something special about an educator, man. We appreciate y'all.
Real love, talking Bobby and Whitney. You don't gotta worry about nothing, 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 about nothing.
Appreciate y'all. That's my time.
Certainly. Thank you, DJ Loose Kid. I am Tamara G. Fitzgerald, a math and chemistry education major, hailing from the blackest county in Florida, Gadsden County, where I am serving as a student teacher at James A. Shanks Middle School, as well as a girls basketball coach at Gaston County High School. And I am elated today to be here with you on this Women in STEM event. Have our Dean Watson with a welcome for everyone.
Thank you so much. Well, everyone, I am so excited to welcome you, our most important investment, our students, as well as our phenomenal teachers and leaders from the FAMU community. Tamara, we are so proud of you for what you do and your classmates will do in the future. Thank you also to our special guests, innovative women making strides in STEM. Our speakers, Ms. Stephanie Epsey and Dr. Toya Jones-Frank. Think of them in the same space as phenomenal scientists like Ms. Katherine Johnson. Katherine was a young African-American girl with an interest in math. Katherine Johnson went on to work for NASA, and her calculations successfully put the first man into space and sent the first American into orbit around the Earth. And that laid the groundwork for the Space Shuttle program. Her exemplary life was the basis for the 2016 Hidden Figures, the movie and the book. Just today, I was in a session with NASA, and Miss Elaine Ho, a NASA science education specialist, who worked for President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama during their presidency on education and STEM initiatives, was the speaker. The possibilities in STEM education are limitless. I want you to see yourselves as a change maker, a leader, an innovator in STEM, and I welcome you to today's forum. Tamara, thank you, and I turn it back over to you.
Of a 300-member band, serving her high school as senior class president, earning a 4.2 GPA, and coaching her classmates and peers in math and science. These first few years of academic coaching and tutoring is what convinced Stephanie that great equip students with a math state of mind, but also go above and beyond to empower lifelong self-motivated learners. After graduating from high school, Stephanie attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She majored in chemical engineering and minored in theater arts, driven to apply her problem-solving skills to the production of real-world technologies. Her experiencing working as an engineer further opened her eyes and convinced her that if more students realize that math and science are modes of perception and not just subjects of study, innovation gaps would no longer exist. To activate this new insight, she created a coaching program to engage middle and high school students in connecting their STEM studies to the real world. Upon graduating from MIT, Stephanie was awarded a fellowship at the University of California at Berkeley, where she pursued a master's in chemical engineering with a certificate in management of technology. Stephanie has conducted research for several Fortune 500 companies and corporations in both the United States and Europe, and has traveled extensively for personal and philanthropic reasons to Brazil, Argentina, Greece, Thailand, Vietnam, South Africa, Spain, Australia, India, and many more places. In 2009, after earning her MBA, Stephanie founded Math Strategies and Problem Solving, or Math SP. Years of experience as a coach, educator, and highly skilled problem solver, coupled with an understanding of business and deep analytical competency, afforded a seamless transition into entrepreneurship. Stephanie believes that this work has been her calling. Now to our Dr. Toya Jones Frank. She is an associate professor education leadership and secondary education program at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. Her research focuses on understanding how race impacts mathematics teacher education and enhancing advanced mathematics learning spaces for historically marginalized students. She is also a visiting scholar and program officer at the National Science Foundation for the 2020 and 2021 academic year. She is a collaborator with mathematicians, mathematics teachers, and teacher leaders in the United States and abroad. Dr. Frank is a former high school mathematics teacher and department chair, and educational consultant for clients including the District of Columbia's public schools and ACT inclusion. She is also a proud graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, where she earned a bachelor's in mathematics and mathematics education. To learn more about her current research, please visit www.blackmathteachers.org. Those are our introductions, and we will first hear from Ms. Stephanie Epsey.
I am going to hire Tamara to introduce me every single time. I mean, I'm like, what is she talking about? Is that me? I guess it is.
It's you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And definitely, I'm like, wow, where'd you get all the information from? Like, that's pretty cool. So thank you for having me here today. I want to thank Dr. Shakir for inviting me to speak today. For Dean Watson for having me here today. I'm very excited because, you guys are the future educators and we need more Black educators, just as we need more Black people in STEM. So this is very special to me. And let me just go ahead and share my screen. I worked as a chemical engineer. I'll just walk you through some of my work experiences. But I ended up in STEM education because I saw a huge gender gap and a huge racial gap in STEM. And when you're in engineering and you're in these, working for these companies in these spaces where you're the only one, it sort of makes you want to be a part of the solution. It makes you want to figure out how can you bring more women and more people of color into these spaces, because the work itself is very exciting. You feel like you're making a difference in the world, you're having an impact, but then you realize, that people that you're working with are, very different from you. And not that that's a bad thing. I think it's good to be different, but I think that too many young people miss out on opportunities because they have never been exposed to them. So my first experience working as a chemical engineer was in a manufacturing plant. So that's just one of the many things you can do with a degree in chemical engineering is manufacture products and go from basically raw materials to some finished product that is then used to impact the world. This is a very labor intensive job. I worked outdoors. I had to wear a hard hat, steel toe boots, this one piece fire resistant uniform. In this particular job, I was the only female, only Black in the entire operation. So that was, again, very disturbing, though the work I was doing was really impactful. From there, I moved on to Europe and I worked for BP in a town called Sunbury, which is outside of London. And there I worked in in more of a corporate environment. So I went from a manufacturing plant to now more corporate environment, worked behind a computer, doing computer simulations, and modeling to try to prevent a gas explosion from happening on an oil rig, like the bottom two pictures. So in this role, I was the only American, which I sort of knew coming over to Europe that could be the case. I was also the only woman and the only Black on the team. So again, that is a recurring theme in my experiences as well as those of people that I know personally. I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed, living in Sunbury. I enjoyed the work. And made a lot of, made some significant contributions. But it was just something in my mind that wouldn't go away of like, why aren't there more? So from that point, I went to University of California, Berkeley for graduate school. I was working with the US Department of Agriculture doing research with them to genetically engineer rubber plants to get the rubber plants to produce higher quality rubber and greater yield. So the top left picture is a picture of a ficus plant. I collected samples from these plants every morning in the greenhouse and basically went down to the lab and then ran experiments all day. Tires natural rubber is very important in many industries, including the tire industry. Airplane tires are 100% natural rubber. So it's very important for the tire industry, the medical industry, and lots of other industries that we produce our own natural rubber in the United States. And that's something that we weren't doing at the time that this research was being done. So very impactful work, published some really interesting papers on the topic. The bottom left are these genetically engineered plants that I was able to, do the initial research to be able to see them actually come to fruition. But you could probably guess the moral of the story here also, only Black and woman. I was not the only woman in the building, but in terms of being a graduate student at the USD, I was the only one. So the gender gap, and just to give you the numbers, women comprise about half the US workforce and make up more than half of those earning bachelor's degrees. However, when you look at the percentages of women earning bachelor's degrees in math, physical sciences, engineering, computer sciences, is less than half, and specifically engineering, computer science, under 20%. So this is the gender gap that you probably have heard of. When you break down physical sciences into chemistry, physics, those percentages are less than 10% women. More women choose biology as a science than chemistry and physics. So there's lots of gaps across more specific fields within science and within math as well. When you zoom in on women of color or underrepresented women of color, including African Americans, Hispanics, you are looking at single digits percentages. So less than 10% across the board in math and physical sciences and engineering, computer science. So there's a huge gender gap, and there's a even bigger women and Black women and women of color gap. And, being on the side where I was, working in the space where I definitely felt that and experienced that, and looking at these numbers they don't surprise me at all. But I do feel like there's a lot that could be done and that is being done to try to bring more girls, more people of color, more Black people into STEM careers. When we zoom in on, look at this in terms of underrepresented women of color across STEM disciplines, we can see the lowest is that darkish goldish color, engineering. So engineering over the years has remained relatively flat, around 3%, 3-4% underrepresented women of color. The next lowest percentage you see is the blue, the computer science. That's, right around 5% about. And then the gold is math and statistics. That's under 6%. And then next will be physical sciences. So those would be the lowest 4 areas that underrepresented women of color are earning degrees. So again, lots of work to be done. And again, the reason why I'm so excited about this group is because what made me decide to go into engineering, in addition to my parents, were the wonderful educators that I had growing up. And I can give you so many different stories about the impact that my chemistry teacher had on me, and my calculus teacher had on me, and my geometry teacher had on me. So the teachers that you encounter along the way are there to, if you end up with good teachers, they're there to inspire and empower you to go into these careers. And that's what I was very fortunate to have. And that's, I attribute my teachers to a lot of the decisions that I made. So you guys have so much power to impact the next generation of women, of people of color in STEM, and you have so much power to change these stats around. So I found a really great quote that summarizes some of the challenges that we see of why we're not, why we see the numbers, these really low numbers. And so I'll share that on this slide. So this is a quote by Ruth Farmer, who is the chief evangelist for CS for All, which is Computer Science for All, a nonprofit that tries to make sure that all K through 12 schools have computer science for all. So this quote reads, there's a lack of role models, a flat out lack of exposure, a stereotype bias of what is a STEM person. It's held by parents, it's held by the media, it's held by teachers. There's no social cost to a boy to take computer science or physics or calculus in school. Girls have to take the brave step of saying, I love this stuff, take a class with 90% boys, probably a male teacher, overcome the media messages, defy their social group, and add on the extra layer of being a minority, a person of color, a Black person is a whole other challenge. And I think there's a lot in this one quote, and a lot of things to kind of sort through and talk through. We had more time, but I really want to emphasize, again, your power as a teacher to overcome and help break stereotypes and biases that are experienced in the classroom, as well as your power as a teacher to expose the students that you impact day after day, week after week, year after year, to careers in STEM, and not just careers in STEM, but also to women and people of color in STEM. And this is really in alignment with the work that I'm doing today with STEM Gems. It all started with the STEM Gems book, and that's a picture of my daughter, who was 3 at the time, but she's 7 now. So this is when I first wrote the book, and it really is a book meant to expose to STEM careers, inspire more girls to choose these STEM careers, and empower them with the know-how and the how-to in order for them to get there. So exposure is extremely important. If you don't know STEM careers exist, then you'll never go down that path if you don't know what the options are. If you don't have role models to look up to, if you don't have examples of what STEM careers, how they make a difference in the world, how they can help people, then again, you'll never consider yourself in something when you haven't had a clear path to getting there. If you haven't talked through some of the challenges that women and people of color face, then when you encounter those challenges, you won't know how to overcome them. And you may be one of the women that ends up leaving the field because of the challenges that you may face once you get there. And if you don't have the steps and an action plan, then again, you may end up starting down a path and then exiting the path because you don't have a clear vision of what it takes to get there. So these are the key things that I wanted to tackle when I wrote the STEM Gems book. And this is what this book really helps girls, parents, educators to uncover, so that you do have a roadmap, you do have the vision, you do have a full array of careers, of people to look up to, and of how to overcome challenges if they come your way. So it started with me brainstorming careers in STEM that I wish I had known about when I was a young person, when I was in my teen years. Some of these careers I did know about because I had parents and educators who introduced me to them, but there's still so many that I didn't have exposure to when I was in middle school and high school. So brainstorming careers that are up today that are changing the world, careers in science, careers in technology, engineering, and math, and helping people to understand what these careers are all about, how they make a difference in the world, why you should consider these careers, how much money you can make if you're in these careers. So this was important to start off with a list of potential careers to include and to find women that represent these careers. So a lot of research, and 3 years later, I've finished these 44 interviews, and here are all the women that I interviewed that represent those careers. I talked to every last one of these women. I wanted to know more about why she chose her career, what inspired her, who inspired her, challenges she's faced along the way, stereotypes she's had to break past, the biggest impact of her work, why it's so important, why we need more women, why we need more people of color, et cetera, et cetera. So I took those interviews and compiled them into about 1,000 words per person to share her story and share more about what she does, as well as 8 chapters that I call the how-to chapters that really outline actionable steps and guidance to help the reader understand the path forward. STEM Gems started with this books, and then it really took on its own legs, and it moved on to the STEM Gems Club. And right now there's about 75 to 80 clubs in different schools across the country. The bulk of them are in the Atlanta area because that's where I live, but we do have clubs in other regions as well. And anyone can start a club, whether you are a student like you guys now, working to become a teacher, a Girl Scout troop leader, a church member, a neighbor. It's really easy to start a club. There's a website at the bottom of the screen if you're interested in learning more about the STEM Gems Club. But this is a group of 5th grade girls that use the STEM Gems book as well as the curriculum that's available on that website to walk through the 44 careers, understand what they are, be exposed to how they can also go down that similar path. So it's transitioned from just a book to a club. It's also transitioned to a social media campaign. I call it the Give Girls Role Models campaign. You can search that hashtag on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you'll find women like Helene Gale and Lori Faith Craner and Debbie Sterling and Trishette Jackson sharing their stories to give girls role models. Girls who have STEM role models are 1.4 times more likely to pursue a career within these fields, yet only 40% of girls say they have a role model in STEM. And we all know that you can't be what you can't see, and you won't be what you don't see. So it's important for girls to see. It's important for people of color to see in order to be. So this is a social media campaign that's really gained a lot of traction over the past 3 or 4 years. And it's really important to me to share stories of inspiring women in STEM of today and of yesterday. It's also moved on to transition to a series of summits. And so next Saturday, if you are interested, you can join us at the STEM Gems Women Empowering Girls Summit that starts at 11 o'clock a.m. It's for girls, it's for parents, it's for teachers, it's for mentors. It's for anyone that has a desire to learn more about careers in STEM and have a chance to meet and interact with women of today in some really male-dominated, white male-dominated STEM careers. So that's, again, happening next Saturday. You can find more information about it if you Google the summit or if you look on the STEM Gems website. So with that, I want to invite you all to connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the handle STEM Gems Book, as well as think about starting a club. You can go to the website to learn more about that. And I think we have some minutes left. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks so much, Steph. Can you talk a little bit more about your transition from working in industry to doing this STEM education work? You started off a little bit with that, but can you say a little bit more about some of that?
Yeah, so I was working on my PhD in chemical engineering at UC Berkeley. I did 3 years. It was 3 very tough years. Not academically, I did really well, but mostly a lack of support. And like I said, I was the only Black woman in the program. I may be the only Black person in the program. And I wasn't used to that because I did have support at MIT for my undergraduate years. I had a lot of support there. I was an active member of NSBE and SWE, and I had an on-campus play mom, my mentor, my second mother. I had a good group of people that I worked with, so we had a pretty solid Black community. Even though it wasn't a whole lot of us on campus, we still felt very connected. So I had the support in community undergrad. I did not have it in graduate school. So I started to really, again, feel more about, kind of identify the problem, the issues that I was facing, and again, figure out that's when I started the initial thought about how do I fix this? So that the next person coming in doesn't have the same experience that I had. And so it was years later that I started Math SP, and Math SP, we didn't really talk about that today, but that's the first business I started. It's really about math and science coaching, because I thought at the time, part of the problem in getting more girls and people of color into STEM was really really when it came down to the basics of math courses you take in school and science courses you take in school, and maybe they just didn't have a good experience, or maybe they don't understand concepts, maybe they missed too much school and fell far behind, and needed some help getting caught up. Or maybe if I could help more of these if I can help the next generation have the passion that I have for math and science, maybe I can help more of them decide to pursue a career in it. So it started with me focusing on content and focusing on helping more really Black people become more proficient in the subject matter. And then as I did that, 5 years into that, I dug deeper into focusing more on the career piece of it, because the foundation, that's one thing. But if you still don't have the exposure to careers, and you still don't have the role models, and you don't have the roadmap, then you still may not choose a career. So I decided to add that part on, and that's really how STEM Gems came about. So, but yeah, it was really based on my own experiences, the things that I wish I had that I didn't have, that ultimately led to me wanting to be really a part of the solution, and deciding to go down the STEM entrepreneurship pathway versus staying in a traditional STEM field.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
My question was, yes, good afternoon and great job. My question was really stimulated to what you were alluding to, and I want you to kind of elaborate on the power that our future educators that are listening today, the power they have in terms of preparing the next generation to think about STEM-related careers.
You guys have all the power. I mean, like I said, I was blessed because I did have fantastic parents in the home, but not every kid has that. So if a kid doesn't have—
Your mom is an engineer. You can't leave that out. Your mom and dad are engineers. Your mom was one of the first Black engineers for the EPA. Cheryl, shout out.
She's right. She knows my parents. So my parents are both engineers. And so, like I said, I was kind of, in a sense, lucky, or I had exposure for sure at home. I had a lot of inspiration. My parents were very hands-on and did a lot of things at home. But because I'm talking to, educators, I really want to emphasize your role as an educator and your role as a parent if you have kids, or when you have kids, that you have to change the path of somebody's life, And when I was interviewing the 44 women, though I had two parents that are both engineers, that's not everybody's story. Those 44 women that I showed you, they did not have that. A lot of them were first to go to college, or their parents did something completely unrelated to what they did. So that's most people's reality, is that they're choosing to choose something like engineering or computer science, or one of these male-dominated or white male-dominated fields. You really have to have somebody show you, introduce it to you, tell you that you should consider it, invite you to go into a summer camp where they can learn more, share with you stories of people who've done it before them. Like it takes someone and some experience for you to see yourself, for a teenager to see themselves going down one of these career paths. You're not going to see it on television, unfortunately. We don't have a Grey's Anatomy or a equivalent, show that really highlights, STEM, careers in engineering, careers in science. We don't have the equivalent to, a Law and Order, or a How to Get Away with Murder, what highlights the legal fields. We don't have the equivalent in mainstream media that will drive more of us into these careers. So it really does start in the home and in the schools. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I tell her every day, you're such a little engineer. Look at you do that. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what mechanical engineers do. They take things apart, they put them back together. That's exactly what, I'm constantly pouring into her, because I want her to think of herself already as an engineer, as a future engineer, as a mathematician, so I use words. I'm very intentional about the words that I use with her. And even the students that I work with through STEM Gems and through Math SP, you know, very intentional about telling them, complimenting them, giving them scenarios of how what they're doing relates to a career that they would be so good at, you know, possibly. So it does, educators do have so much power and so much influence. And all you have to do is tell someone that they will make a great engineer or great electrical engineer, chemical, nuclear, whatever, and get that idea into their head, and then plant that seed and watch it grow. And that's definitely the power that you all have. Bring in real people into your classroom to talk about what they do. Start STEM Gems clubs. You know, then I can help you, you know, bring in real people into your classroom. Show them examples every day, every week. You know, that's what it takes for them to start to see themselves as, you know, the next generation of STEM leaders.
Thanks so much, Steph. I know you're, sorry, Miss SB, I know you're running off to get Zoe from school, but thank you so much. And so we'll let Dr. Frank get started. And Stephanie did put her information there on her slide, so you can go back and watch that on the YouTube video. But she will also be working with us here in the CEC with helping with tutoring and doing other workshops. So you will see her again. And thank you, Dean Watson, for sharing Stephanie's book, STEM Gems, which is available on Amazon and all other places where books are sold. Thanks, Steph.
If you go to the STEM Gems website and send me a message, I'll sign it for you. So I can only sign it if you order through the website. If you order through Amazon, I won't get it. You know, I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to intercept it, I mean. So if you want me to sign it for you, I'm happy to do that. Just shoot me a message from the website and I'll sign it before shipping it off to you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And again, you guys, I'm very happy that you chose this career path for yourself, and I'm excited about your futures and how many girls and people of color that you're going to impact. So thank you again.
I am excited. I am elated. I am over the moon to be here. I'm Toya Frank, and I am a faculty. I'm associate professor of math education and secondary education at George Mason University, and I'm a program officer at the National Science Foundation. But more than that, I'm a rattler. And so I am extremely excited to be here to share a little bit of my path, what I do. I'm glad that I was able to do this with Ms. Espy, because I think that our presentations connect in some way. So I want to talk to you all a little bit today about using my wings, about how FAMU is a launching pad to a meaningful career in STEM. And so the picture that I have here, this is Ms. Bushnell. Ms. Bushnell is a teacher in DC public schools, and she's allowed me to use her picture, but you see there, she teaches math, and I don't know if you can see her, what's on the screen there, but she was teaching volume of pyramids that day with her students, and whenever she wanted to get their attention, she'd have everybody raise their fists and come back into focus. And you see she has on her t-shirt that says Black Teachers Matter, because they absolutely do. So as someone who was prepared at Florida A&M to be a Black teacher, you will see how being at FAM sort of is interwoven into my career path. So I want to start with a picture. This is a picture of graduation. So these are my friends. We all were in the College of Science. We all majored in math, and we did our student teaching. So we all picked up the math education credits, and we are all still doing work in mathematics and in mathematics education. And so I called this presentation Using My Wings, because there's a quote that I love. I'm a quote collector, that talks about how real love gives you feet and it gives you wings, right? So feet ground you and they make you feel safe. And then wings give you space and they send you out into the world. And so I can't tell a story of my success to this point without talking about Florida A&M and the feet, the safety and security that I got being a part of the Comedic Math Society. I'm not sure if it's still there, but like I never thought about doing math, and being Black is two things that were not associated with one another. Or I remember I came to FAM thinking I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. But I took a calculus class, and I ended up tutoring lots of people on campus. And I took a calculus class, and Dr. Harvey looked at us and he said, "Let's do the work, mathematicians." and I believed him. So not only did I get grounded in that safety and security, there's power in your entire differential equations class being Black. So not only did I get that safety and feet, but then they gave me wings. So these are my study buddies. We are all still friends to this day. We keep a group chat going where we still share interesting problems, math problems with each other. And so, while you're there, ground yourselves and then think about how you'll support each other once you fly away. So while I was at Florida A&M, like I said, I majored in math, but I also did the education component. So I can remember sitting in seminars like this and hearing people speak. And so I remember when Marva Collins, who is an amazing educator, and I think that all educators should have a library. So these are two books, two classics, but I'm recommending them because they still hold. I remember Marva Collins came to campus and she presented to us, and it changed the way I saw children, particularly Black children, and it just changed my focus in teaching. And while I was there, Gloria Ladson Billings' work, also the Dream Keepers, also came out while I was an education student at Florida A&M. And so her book was all about characteristics of teachers who successfully educated African-American children. And so while I was at FAM, I came in how do I bring up students? How do I get students to go where I need them to be? And my thinking shifted a lot to how do I create classroom structures for students' brilliance that they bring with them that is just inherent to children, all children, and in particular Black children? How do I create classroom structures for children's brilliance to flourish? So that was just one of those big pieces for me. And so, I finished at FAM and I went on to become a high school math teacher. I did that for almost a decade. And then I returned to school and I went to the University of Maryland College Park and I earned a master's and went back to teaching and became a math department chair at a high school. So I taught at Rickards High School. I did my student teaching at Rickards. I found out I got into the University of Maryland while I was teaching at Rickards. And then I moved to the DC area where I live now, and I taught high school in Prince George's County. I don't know if there are any DMV students on the Zoom call, but I taught in Prince George's County, and I was a math department chair there, and I was also a mathematics department chair in Montgomery County, which is right outside of DC. And then I went on to I was an item writer for the ACT for a while, and I still go back from time to time and sit on what are called fairness panels. So you go in, you may work in 200 to 500 questions, just depending on what they're doing. And then you not only read the questions for content, but you read the questions to also think about the role of culture and the role of language and those sorts of things. And that's really where my work sits now, thinking about math and race and culture, in particular, thinking about advanced mathematics for Black students and Black teachers. So, I did some consulting work, and I also, I taught during the era of No Child Left Behind, which had a huge impact on what I do, how I teach and those sorts of things. And so those concerns also took me back to graduate school. So I returned to graduate school and I earned my PhD, and there's some pictures there. So this picture is my parents the day I finished, or I graduated with my PhD at Maryland. Just some influential things that I read during my graduate school time. So there's Radical Equations by Bob Moses. Just some places where I have done a lot of talking and speaking about the work that I'm going to present to you today. But it all started in Florida at Rickards, and that's my very first class that I taught. And so after finishing my PhD, I went on to become a professor at George Mason. And so I'm currently there. I'm on leave, and I'll talk a little bit about why I'm on leave. But I teach math methods courses. So I teach students who want to become middle and high school math teachers. And then I also teach in the mathematics department. But a lot of my work, so while I was at the University of Maryland, I had a lot of time to read and think. Maryland is a program that thinks a lot about what mathematics means for urban schooling. And so I did a lot of work and read a lot in mathematics, but also outside of mathematics, and started to think about, so what are my goals? Why am I teaching math? What is my purpose? And so, while I was at Maryland, I had the opportunity to really redefine my goals as an educator. And so I became more than just an educator who wanted to just teach students math. I started to think about, what does it mean to be a mathematics educator or a STEM educator for social justice and liberation? So what does it mean if I'm using my mathematics teaching to dismantle systems of oppression and privilege in mathematics? But what does it mean to teach for liberation? What does it mean when I can create conditions in my classroom that allow students to be supported, in terms of their goals economically, culturally, politically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually? And so I think a lot about like personhood and what we bring to math classrooms. And people love to think of math as this hard, cold discipline, but I would argue that it absolutely isn't. And it's our job as STEM educators to make STEM a place where personhood is really important. So for me, for those of you who are my math ed students on here, I want to talk a little bit. We know that axioms are just statements that we accept as true. And so these are just some of the axioms that I've developed over time as a mathematics educator that I take with me when I do research, when I give presentations. And so of course we know content matters, right? If you don't have flexible content knowledge, you can't support students' different ways of knowing and understanding math. You won't be able to really think about how they're conceptualizing math. Content knowledge is necessary, but not sufficient to ensure equity and social justice and liberation for children, particularly Black children in math. And of course, we know pedagogy matters. So we take math methods courses because the methods that we use to teach mathematics to children matter as much as the content. But we also know that just addressing content, or just addressing pedagogy rather, those things are necessary, but they still aren't sufficient. So the only way that we really address, and work toward equity, social justice, and liberation in STEM education is to go beyond just addressing content and pedagogy, and really to think about the role of culture and what our students bring and how we leverage what students bring to us as springboards for learning. So these are just some of my overarching ideas and the ways that I see math. So we know that STEM itself has a culture. We know that STEM has a culture that often excludes and marginalizes, particularly people who are vulnerable. And to me, that's the beauty of doing a STEM degree at a historically Black college, because in some ways I was protected. And then when I went back and earned my master's and my PhD, I was reminded because of, the just sort of innate sort of under assumption, but when you're ready, right? But nonetheless, you experience the sort of marginalization, right? But doing math and other work in STEM, those things are inherently cultural practices. So there is mathematics in hair braiding. There is mathematics, there is STEM in doing double dutch. There's a researcher by the name of Naila Nasir who watches Black men play dominoes and talks about logic and thinking. And so we do inherently, Alan Bishop would say, we all do mathematical things without even realizing that we're doing them. And I would say the same thing about all STEM practices. Watch Black women do their hair. We are chemists, right? So we participate in everyday practices that are inherently STEM. So it's not something that we have to go out and get, because it is a part of our story. And then the one thing I would say, just as a researcher, because I teach, but I also conduct a lot of research, is that you have to do research, particularly with communities of color. And I'm going to speak specifically about Black communities. Research with Black teachers and students has to be done with and not about or on. And so these are just some of the overarching ideas that I bring. So what does all this mean? So let's watch this quick clip, and let's talk about maybe what I would see using this particular clip, using that framing, those overarching ideas.
Jaden has $1 bill, 1 quarter, and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jaden broke.
Right. So Jaden is broke, right? According to this child's social and cultural understanding of the world, Jaden is broke. And so the math education researcher in me not only understands that he thinks Jaden is broke, but I know that he thinks Jaden is broke according to his cultural and social and contextual location in this world. So I know that he brings multifaceted identities that bring him to the conclusion that Jaden is broke, Because another little kid might say $1.27. Like, I could go to the store and buy some candy, but he said Jaden is broke, right? Learning math is a racialized experience. So we don't know what his experiences are, right? But we know that when we send our children into schools, whether they are predominantly Black schools or you know, schools that are made up of or predominantly white institutions or otherwise, we still know that learning math, one of my dear mentors would say, is a racialized experience for children. And so I wondered, the teacher educator in me wonders, and I would ask my students. So my students and I sometimes watch these clips because I teach in an incredibly white space, but I send them into schools where they meet children who are very much not like them. Would a teacher recognize his brilliance? It was what he said, would people count it as mathematics? Would it be honored as mathematical thinking? And so a larger question for me is like, whose mathematical or whose STEM thinking gets legitimized and honored in math classes? And so speaking to, you know, future STEM teachers, that's your job, to hear that STEM thinking in everyday language and honor it. Not to say that our children don't need formal mathematics, because you do in order to just play the game, right? But taking what children bring with us, there are tons of follow-up questions that we could ask that young man about Jaden being broke, that would get to ideas of numeracy, estimation, all of these things embedded right in that 15-second moment. And so those are the kinds of things that I think about. In addition to that, these are just some of my areas of research. I study math teacher knowledge and lived experience. I look at issues of equity and access, and I look at classroom interactions, similar to the things that I just discussed in that little 15-minute clip. And so I'll close with just sharing with you all a little bit about the work that I'm doing now. So I work at the National Science Foundation, but prior to working there, I was funded to do a project called the Trajectories of Black Mathematics Teachers. And you see that we have a Twitter account, and our website is there. Please visit us. It's under construction, but it will be completed by the end of April. But we've started putting things up. This work was just in response to all of the conversation happening around teacher diversity, particularly around Black teachers. And so for us, it was important to not just think about teacher diversity, but to think about it in a hard to staff subject area like math, with the hopes of branching out and looking at other STEM areas. And these are just some articles that have come out in the last few years about teacher diversity. And then there's just some startling data here around like why be so narrowly focused on Black mathematics teachers, but you can see here that Black math teachers make up 1/3 of 1% of all teachers. So I'm in special company today, right? Black teachers are about 6 to 7% of secondary math teachers. And I'm sure that this data mirrors, and it may be worse. I bet if we looked at physics teachers, if we looked at chemistry teachers, it would mirror, but it might actually be a little bit worse. But this idea here of Black teachers having limited access to teaching at advanced mathematics is something that's also really important to our team. And these are just some of our research questions. And if you visit us on the site, all of these things are there. But and this is the site, blackmathteachers.org. If you go there, so we don't think we can talk about teacher diversity without looking historically, because there hasn't always been a shortage of Black teachers. We have to look to Brown, and what happened in Brown will help us more accurately tell the story. So we have interviews with retired Black mathematics teachers, including, we call her the crown gem of our study, Dr. Gore, who started teaching in 1951, and she retired as director of DC Public Schools. So these are stories of Black women who taught mathematics pre and post desegregation. And so looking at those stories, we think about what it can tell us from the future. But we also have large scale quantitative work. We just had a piece published in Education Researcher, which is like one of the top education journals in the field, and just looking at this idea that we can recruit Black teachers, but we need to look at the retention end. And Black teachers are telling us that issues of like racist microaggressions impact their decisions to stay in the field. So we've been putting forth policy implications. You can't just bring people in and do race quotas. You have to think about the environments in which you ask people to teach. But all of those things are there. And so I'm at the National Science Foundation right now. So I am on leave. I'm not teaching. I'm still doing research. But right now I'm also supporting people in getting funding. So if you have ideas, please reach out. My contact information, believe is on the next slide. And so that's what I do. I work with people to win funding. And one of our initiatives right now is working with HBCUs, community colleges, and Florida A&M leads in terms of STEM pure science funding. And so I would love to see the College of Education and STEM educators in particular win some grant money. So I would love, so please send me your ideas. And so in closing, I am a STEM educator who absolutely loves the humanities. So I'm going to close with Toni Morrison quote. And I just want to remind everybody, particularly all our STEM ed students on here, that you come from a legacy of excellence in Black education, and in particular, a legacy of STEM brilliance in Black education. And so do your power analysis, not power analysis like we do in statistics to find out how many people you need in your sample. But when people start to give you rhetoric about Black children and Black teachers that's really deficit oriented, think about power structures. Don't sit it all on the shoulders of the children you intend to serve. Think about how power plays into those conversations. It's important for us to stay in STEM because differently positioned people in the world ask different questions in and of STEM. And so don't be afraid to ask provocative questions. I think that STEM Gym's work is a beautiful example of that. And then as you move forward and you start to teach, think about the feet and the wings that you get, that you've come to have at FAM, and think about how you'll cultivate those feet and wings for your future students. So thank you, and here's my contact information. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, but I'm happy.
You know what? This was phenomenal. This was phenomenal. I love the
Yes, it
date.
was.
In your response, I was thinking of Dr. Osafield Anderson, math professor.
Yeah.
I'm sure
my linear algebra professor.
He is amazing, and one of the things I love about him is something that you shared, how you integrated math with life.
Mm-hmm.
And how it really does make sense. Even when we, wash our dishes, we're using chemistry. I'm hoping that just as Mike was inspired, you inspired everybody else on here. And, Mrs. Epps stated this earlier in terms of mentorship. What is your philosophy on mentorship in terms of preparing our younger professionals to mentor students into getting into the math field?
So I'll just say, I know I wouldn't be here without the mentoring. Like I told you the story of Dr. Harvey, but even things like, so I'm the first person in my family to finish college, right? So I remember getting there, I was like on a presidential award. That's back when FAM was like competing for like National Merit Scholars. Got there with a scholarship, but we like couldn't get the FAFSA right. So we had to keep sending it. And so back and forth, and then you had to fill it out on paper. But right, but it was people who like, calling me mathematician or bringing me in, spending that time after class. I would tell students on here, also don't put your mentorship on the shoulders of one person. You find different people who are good for different things. So somebody will help you with your interview. Somebody will help you with your resume and your application. Maybe somebody else talks to you about graduate school and next moves. I have a PhD because I also was a member of the graduate feeder program. I didn't know I'd go to graduate school. I was telling everybody I was going to get a PhD, but I had no idea what that really entailed. So like that picture I showed you all of my parents hugging me, like this degree belongs to everybody, right? So you have to also make sure that, spread out your mentoring. It can't just all come from one person because, people are busy. So you figure out who can help you and where the strengths are. But that's what I would say around mentoring. Be sure and broaden your network. See it as a network and not just one person. Think about your web of people who can support you.
I want to say, Dr. Frank, this has been remarkable. I am from PG County. I went to Oxon Hill High School, and I don't know if you were in the same class with Tamika Franklin, but She was one of my close friends and went through engineering.
Mhm.
So excited to have you and for you to share your words of wisdom and just reality about the impact that we make as educators and STEM educators. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm a resident of Oxon Hill. So
Awesome.
Hi, Dr. Frank. This is Dr. Vanessa Pittsbanister. I am the math educator here at FAMU. It's exciting to hear some of the things that you were talking about. It brought back so many memories of my doctoral experience and my postdoc at UC Berkeley with Danny Martin.
yes, he was a dear friend and mentor.
Yes. I mean, all of the Naila, all of them, right?
Yes.
Those were great experiences, and it just really brought a smile back. So very refreshing.
What a gift for them to have you. Oh
yes, so we definitely, I am going to reach out to you so we can discuss, but all of that was very exciting. You got me really thrilled.
We love Dr. Pittsbanister. We were so I was like feeding off of your energy and Dr. Pittsbanister's energy and Tamara's energy. I was just like, I'm just getting all this.
Oh goodness, thank you so much.
Some of you may know she used to work at our radio station here on campus, WANM. And when we were face to face in the CEC, she would always greet everyone, welcome to the CEC. Thank you for coming. So she has a great broadcasting voice and we appreciate it. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. As I mentioned before, if you didn't register using the link, you will not see your name here. So this is how we gauge not only attendance, but also the door prizes. As always, the door prizes are a choice of 3 items, either a $25 gift card, a GK voucher, or whichever exam that you currently have, right? Or a task stream voucher. And this is that time in the semester when everybody has to get going with task stream. So we hope that you're lucky and win. Oh, Tamra. Good. So Tamra, what would you like for your door prize?
I need that task stream code because mine runs out this month. So
okay. How fortunate. Okay, so we can talk afterwards about doing your task stream extension. Okay, congratulations. We'll spin 2 more times. Simone. Simone has her professional exam coming up. So is that the voucher you want, Simone, or something else? Are you still here, Simone? Is she here? No? Okay, well, we're removing her. So we still have to spin 2 more times. Taylor, are you still here? Taylor? No? Okay. Y'all getting lucky. All right. Is she here? Okay, I'm noticing a trend. This will be my last time spinning, if no one objects. Or do y'all want me to spin until we get a winner? Spin. That was an oval. Shaderica?
Can I have the $25 voucher?
$25 gift card?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so just email me afterwards. I hope your internship is coming along well. Are you?
I'm not interning. I intern in the fall.
It's not yet. Okay, I'm pushing you ahead. Okay. All right. Congratulations. And please email me afterwards and then we can connect about the gift card. Okay. All right, so we just have one more spin. Ash? Ashley, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, which one would you like? The GK voucher, Task Stream voucher, or $25 gift card?
Can I do the GK voucher?
Sure. Okay, we can talk about that later because you have another meeting with me later on with the LLC. So come on with us for our final forum of the semester, which we definitely want all of you to be here because we want all of you to go on and get your master's and PhD. So Tamara, take it away with our social media.
Okay, you can certainly connect with us on all of these social media platforms at FAMU College of Education. Specifically for that social media platforms, that is FAMU_COE. You can follow us on Twitter, friend us on Facebook at FAMU College of Education, and on Instagram, FAMU_COE. It has been a pleasure being your host today. I hope your day continues to be great and that you keep all the things that we have learned and has inspired today in mind as you move forward this month. And we will see you next month at our next forum. Thank you all for being here.